Good morning. Thank you for being here today. I want to talk about something that at its core is both deeply personal and incredibly transformative. It's the idea of rebuilding yourself, not just fixing what's broken, but reimagining who you are, what you can become, and how you can show up for yourself and the world around you. Embracing vulnerability as a source of strength is a profound and often misunderstood concept. For many, vulnerability is synonymous with weakness, a state to avoid at all costs. We have been conditioned to view vulnerability as something to hide, something that might expose us to judgment, rejection, or failure. The idea of being vulnerable feels risky, uncomfortable, and sometimes downright terrifying. Yet, when we begin to shift our perspective and understand vulnerability differently, it becomes clear that it is, in fact, one of the most powerful tools for personal growth and connection. At its core, vulnerability is about showing up authentically. It's about being willing to expose the parts of ourselves that are raw, unpolished, and imperfect. It's the courage to share our fears, our doubts, and our struggles with others, even when the outcome is uncertain. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we are no longer hiding behind a mask of perfection or pretense. Instead, we're choosing to embrace our humanity in all its complexity and messiness. One of the reasons we fear vulnerability is because we associate it with exposure. We fear that by opening ourselves up, we might be judged, ridiculed, or rejected. But what we often fail to recognize is that vulnerability is not about making ourselves a target for others to tear down. It's about allowing ourselves to be seen, not in spite of our flaws, but because of them. It's in these moments of rawness that we connect most deeply with others. When we share our vulnerabilities, we create an opening for others to do the same. And in that space, we often find true connection, empathy, and understanding. It's through these shared experiences of vulnerability that trust is built and relationships are strengthened. Moreover, vulnerability is not just about emotional openness, it's also about accepting ourselves fully. When we embrace our imperfections, we stop trying to meet impossible standards and begin to appreciate ourselves for who we truly are. We stop seeing ourselves through the lens of what we should be and start recognizing our inherent worth despite our flaws. This shift allows us to approach life with greater authenticity, as we no longer need to hide parts of ourselves that we deem unacceptable. By accepting our vulnerabilities, we liberate ourselves from the constant pressure to be flawless. In addition, vulnerability is often the key to personal growth. It is in moments of vulnerability that we take the biggest leaps forward. Whether it's stepping out of our comfort zone to pursue a new goal, facing a fear, or admitting to ourselves that we need help, vulnerability is a necessary ingredient for change. It's when we allow ourselves to be open to uncertainty and risk that we create the space for transformation. Vulnerability is the place where growth happens because it requires us to move beyond what is familiar and safe. It challenges us to trust in ourselves, to take risks, and to embrace the discomfort that comes with pursuing something new. Vulnerability is also critical in building resilience. The more we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, the more we learn how to cope with the inevitable challenges and setbacks that life presents. Each time we choose to be vulnerable, we build a little more emotional muscle. We become more comfortable with discomfort, more willing to take chances, and more capable of bouncing back when things don't go as planned. Vulnerability allows us to cultivate a mindset that sees setbacks as opportunities for learning rather than signs of failure. It's the resilience that emerges from embracing vulnerability that enables us to keep moving forward in the face of adversity. When we look at vulnerability as a source of strength, we begin to see it for what it truly is, a courageous act of self-acceptance, an openness that enables us to live more fully. It's not about being weak, it's about being brave enough to show up as we are, without pretense or defensiveness. It's about having the courage to be imperfect, to ask for help, to be seen in our struggles, and to trust that, despite it all, we are worthy of love, connection, and respect. Rebuilding through self-compassion and understanding is a transformative process that allows us to move beyond self-criticism and embrace our own humanity. Too often, we live in a constant state of judgment toward ourselves. We focus on what we perceive as our failures, shortcomings, and mistakes, holding ourselves to standards of perfection that are often impossible to meet. This mindset leads to frustration, burnout, and a diminished sense of self-worth. But when we learn to approach ourselves with compassion, we shift the narrative. We stop seeing ourselves through a lens of judgment and begin to see ourselves through the lens of understanding and kindness. Self-compassion is not about excusing our mistakes or allowing ourselves to remain stagnant. It's about recognizing that as human beings, we are all imperfect. We make mistakes, face challenges, and experience setbacks. These experiences are not signs of failure. They are a part of the journey. Self-compassion is about acknowledging that these moments of difficulty do not define us. Instead, they are opportunities for growth, learning, and connection. It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a friend in need. When we practice self-compassion, we free ourselves from the burden of harsh self-criticism. We stop punishing ourselves for things beyond our control or for moments when we didn't meet our expectations. Instead of thinking, I'm not good enough or I failed again, we begin to think, I'm doing the best I can, or I'm learning from this experience. This shift in perspective opens up space for growth and healing, allowing us to move forward with a sense of grace rather than shame. One of the most powerful aspects of self-compassion is that it enables us to be more understanding of our emotions. Instead of pushing away feelings like sadness, frustration, or fear, we allow ourselves to feel them without judgment. We give ourselves permission to experience our emotions without labeling them as weaknesses or signs of failure. By embracing our emotions as a natural part of our human experience, we create an internal environment where healing can begin. When we accept that it's okay to not be okay, we take the first step toward emotional freedom. This kind of acceptance helps us process our feelings and move through them without being overwhelmed by them. Self-compassion also encourages us to challenge the unrealistic expectations we place on ourselves. In a world where comparison is often at the forefront of our lives, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that we are not measuring up to others. We compare our success to others' highlights, and in doing so, we lose sight of our own progress. Practicing self-compassion means accepting that our journey is unique, and it doesn't need to look like anyone else's. It's about celebrating the progress we make, no matter how small, and honoring our own pace. By doing this, we can reduce the pressure we put on ourselves and embrace our individual path with more patience and understanding. Another key component of self-compassion is learning to forgive ourselves. Holding on to guilt and shame for past mistakes prevents us from moving forward. It keeps us stuck in the past, unable to experience the present with full presence and joy. Self-compassion allows us to recognize that we are human, and like all humans, we will make mistakes. These mistakes don't diminish our worth. Instead, they offer us valuable lessons that contribute to our growth. Forgiving ourselves means acknowledging our imperfections, making amends if necessary, and letting go of the past so that we can step into the future with renewed energy and clarity. Self-compassion also encourages us to set boundaries with ourselves and others. When we are compassionate with ourselves, we recognize that we have limits and needs. We allow ourselves to say no when something doesn't align with our well-being, and we honor our own needs without guilt. This practice is not selfish, it's necessary for our mental, emotional, and physical health. By setting boundaries, we protect our energy and create the space to recharge, reflect, and prioritize what truly matters to us. In the process of rebuilding through self-compassion, we come to realize that our worth is not determined by our achievements or how others perceive us. We are worthy simply because we are human. When we begin to see ourselves with this kind of understanding, we start to treat ourselves with the love and respect we deserve. We stop looking for external validation and start nurturing an internal sense of peace, confidence, and self-acceptance. Self-compassion is not a one-time act, but a practice that must be woven into the fabric of our daily lives. It's a commitment to being kinder, gentler, and more understanding toward ourselves every day, regardless of our circumstances. Rewriting the limiting stories we've been telling ourselves is one of the most powerful tools for personal transformation. Throughout our lives, we internalize narratives about who we are, what we are capable of, and what we deserve. These stories often come from external influences such as societal expectations, family beliefs, or experiences of failure and rejection. Over time, these narratives take root in our minds, shaping how we view ourselves and how we move through the world. However, these stories are not fixed truths. They are often based on incomplete or distorted perceptions. The good news is that we have the power to rewrite these stories, to break free from the beliefs that hold us back, and to create new narratives that empower us to live fully and authentically. The first step in rewriting these limiting stories is to become aware of them. Most of the time, these narratives operate in the background of our consciousness, influencing our thoughts and actions without us even realizing it. We may have internalized a belief that we are not good enough, that we are destined to fail, or that we don't deserve happiness or success. These stories show up in the form of self-doubt, fear, or procrastination. They keep us stuck in patterns of behavior that prevent us from taking risks or pursuing our true desires. The more we listen to these stories, the more they shape our reality. This is why self-awareness is key. By becoming mindful of the thoughts and beliefs that are running through our minds, we can start to identify the limiting stories that are holding us back. Once we become aware of these limiting beliefs, the next step is to challenge them. We often accept these stories as truths because they are familiar or because they align with past experiences. But just because something has been true in the past does not mean it is true in the present or the future. We must ask ourselves, are these stories based on facts, or are they simply interpretations of events that have happened? Are they helpful, or do they limit our growth and potential? By questioning these stories, we create space to see them for what they really are, beliefs, not facts. This process allows us to loosen their grip on our lives and opens up the possibility for new, more empowering narratives to take their place. Rewriting our stories involves replacing old, limiting beliefs with new, more constructive ones. This process is not about ignoring the challenges we faced or pretending that difficult experiences never happened. It's about reframing those experiences in a way that acknowledges their lessons and growth rather than focusing solely on their pain. For example, instead of telling ourselves, I failed, and that means I'm not capable, we can reframe the story by saying, I faced a challenge, and while it didn't go as planned, I learned valuable lessons that will help me grow. By shifting the perspective, we take power away from failure and instead view it as a stepping stone on our path to success. Another key aspect of rewriting our stories is recognizing our strengths. Often, when we're stuck in limiting narratives, we focus only on our weaknesses or areas where we feel inadequate. But we all have strengths, talents, and qualities that make us unique. These strengths might be qualities we've overlooked or undervalued, but they are there. By reminding ourselves of our capabilities, we build the confidence necessary to take action and move forward. Rewriting our stories means focusing on our potential, not just our limitations. It means embracing the parts of ourselves that are resilient, creative, and resourceful, and letting those aspects of our personality shine through. Rewriting our stories also involves embracing the idea that we can change and evolve. Many of us hold on to stories that limit our ability to grow because we believe that who we are today is fixed and unchangeable. We might think, I'm not the kind of person who takes risks, or I'll never be good at this. These beliefs create a sense of stagnation and prevent us from trying new things or stepping outside our comfort zone. But the truth is, change is always possible. We are not defined by our past mistakes or by who we were yesterday. We are constantly evolving, learning, and adapting. When we allow ourselves to see that change is not only possible but inevitable, we begin to open up to new possibilities. The stories we've told ourselves up until now no longer hold the same power because we realize that we are not limited by them. Finally, rewriting our stories means embracing self-compassion and patience. Changing the narratives we've carried with us for so long is not an overnight process. It takes time, effort, and practice. There will be moments when we slip back into old patterns of thinking, but that's okay. What matters is that we keep going. The more we practice rewriting our stories, the easier it becomes. It's about building a new way of thinking, one that empowers us to take bold steps toward the life we want to create. Rewriting our stories is not about perfection, it's about progress. It's about choosing to believe in ourselves, even when the old narratives try to creep back in. Each time we make the choice to tell a new, more empowering story, we move closer to the person we are meant to become. Seeking connection and support is a crucial step in the process of rebuilding ourselves. We are often taught to value independence and self-sufficiency, equating strength with the ability to handle everything on our own. This mindset can make us feel as though we should navigate challenges without asking for help, as if needing support is a sign of weakness. However, this perspective often leads to isolation, burnout, and unnecessary struggles. The truth is that human beings are inherently social creatures, and we are wired for connection. We thrive when we build relationships, seek support from others, and allow ourselves to lean on those around us. Connection is not only essential for emotional well-being, but it also fosters growth, healing, and resilience. One of the first steps in seeking connection is recognizing the importance of vulnerability. It is through vulnerability that we open the door to deeper, more meaningful connections with others. When we allow ourselves to be seen, truly seen, with all of our flaws, fears, and imperfections, we invite others to do the same. This mutual openness creates a space where empathy, understanding, and trust can flourish. Vulnerability is not about exposing ourselves in a way that leaves us unprotected. It's about sharing our authentic selves and allowing others to witness our humanity. By being vulnerable, we create opportunities for true connection, which is essential for personal healing and growth. It's also important to understand that seeking connection is not about relying solely on others for validation or emotional support. It's about creating a network of relationships that enrich our lives and provide a sense of belonging. Whether it's a close friend, a family member, a mentor, or even a therapist, having someone to turn to during difficult times helps us feel understood and less alone in our struggles. When we reach out to others for support, we acknowledge that we are not meant to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders alone. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. It takes courage to admit that we need others, and in doing so, we create opportunities for growth and connection that can empower us to move forward. Another aspect of seeking connection is surrounding ourselves with people who uplift and support us. The relationships we choose to cultivate play a significant role in shaping our lives and our emotional well-being. Positive, supportive relationships can provide us with a sense of security, encouragement, and motivation to keep moving forward. These relationships help us see ourselves in a positive light and remind us of our worth when we start to doubt it. On the other hand, toxic relationships, those that drain us or perpetuate negativity, can hold us back and reinforce limiting beliefs. When rebuilding ourselves, it's important to evaluate the relationships we engage in and ensure that we are nurturing those that contribute to our growth and well-being. In addition to seeking support from others, seeking connection also means finding communities where we feel a sense of belonging. Whether it's a group of like-minded individuals who share our values, an interest group, or a professional network, being part of a community can be incredibly empowering. Communities provide a sense of connection that reminds us we are not alone in our experiences. They offer opportunities for shared learning, mutual support, and collective growth. Being part of a community also allows us to contribute to the well-being of others, which in turn strengthens our own sense of purpose and fulfillment. When we surround ourselves with people who inspire and challenge us, we grow not just as individuals, but as a collective. Moreover, seeking connection is not just about asking for help, it's also about being there for others. Relationships are reciprocal, and one of the most fulfilling ways to rebuild ourselves is by offering support to those who need it. When we support others, we gain a deeper understanding of our own capacity for compassion, empathy, and strength. Helping others can also serve as a reminder of the importance of connection and the impact that a kind word or a listening ear can have on someone else's life. In this way, seeking connection is not just about what we can receive, but also about what we can give. Reaching out for support is also essential when it comes to professional or therapeutic guidance. There is no shame in seeking therapy, coaching, or mentorship when we need it. These professionals can offer tools, strategies, and insights that help us navigate the challenges we face and accelerate our process of rebuilding. Seeking professional support is a proactive step toward healing, growth, and empowerment. It shows that we are committed to our well-being and that we are willing to invest in ourselves. Lastly, seeking connection means allowing ourselves to be seen, heard, and understood without fear of judgment. In our most difficult moments, the simple act of sharing our experiences with someone who listens can bring immense relief. Sometimes just knowing that someone else understands what we're going through can be enough to help us find the strength to move forward. Connection and support offer us the space to process our emotions, gain perspective, and feel validated in our experiences. It reminds us that we are not isolated in our struggles and that there is always a way forward when we reach out to others. Progress, not perfection, is the key to lasting change. We live in a world that often equates success with perfection. From social media to workplace environments, the idea of flawless achievement is frequently celebrated, making us believe that unless we reach that idealized version of success, we have failed. This mindset can be incredibly limiting, as it creates pressure to perform at an unrealistic standard. It breeds fear of making mistakes and results in constant self-criticism, ultimately making it harder to take risks and move forward. However, true transformation and growth come not from reaching perfection, but from embracing progress, no matter how small, that allows us to evolve, learn, and build resilience along the way. At the heart of this idea is the understanding that perfection is an illusion. It is an unattainable ideal that keeps us stuck in a cycle of striving without ever feeling fulfilled. Perfection is subjective, and what one person views as perfect may not even be close to that for someone else. More importantly, perfection doesn't account for the growth process, which is messy, unpredictable, and full of setbacks. When we focus on perfection, we often miss the beauty of the journey, the lessons that come from failure, and the unexpected insights that arise when things don't go as planned. Progress, on the other hand, encourages us to celebrate the small steps forward, to embrace mistakes as part of the learning process, and to acknowledge the effort we put into achieving our goals, regardless of the outcome. Focusing on progress rather than perfection allows us to take the pressure off ourselves. It gives us permission to try, to fail, and to try again without the fear of being judged. When we aim for progress, we understand that setbacks are not signs of defeat, but opportunities for growth. Every mistake becomes a chance to learn something new, to adjust our approach, and to refine our skills. We begin to see failure not as something to avoid, but as an essential part of the journey. This shift in perspective opens us up to greater risk-taking and creativity because we know that progress is built upon the willingness to step outside our comfort zones and experiment with new ideas. When we focus on progress, we also begin to cultivate self-compassion. Rather than criticizing ourselves for not meeting impossible standards, we learn to appreciate the effort we are putting in. It becomes easier to acknowledge our achievements, no matter how small they seem. Each step forward, no matter how incremental, is a step toward the person we are becoming. In fact, progress is not always linear. There may be times when we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but this is part of the process. It is natural to face obstacles, challenges, and periods of stagnation. The key is to keep moving forward, to keep showing up for ourselves, and to keep taking action even when it feels difficult or when the progress seems slow. Progress also allows for flexibility. It embraces the idea that we don't have to have everything figured out at once. When we focus on perfection, we feel compelled to have a rigid plan, to know every step, and to execute flawlessly. This pressure often leads to procrastination and self-doubt because it feels overwhelming to meet such high expectations. Progress, however, is dynamic and adaptable. It encourages us to experiment, to make mistakes, and to adjust our goals as we learn more about ourselves and our needs. By embracing this flexibility, we allow room for new possibilities and are more open to the idea that we can still succeed, even if the path looks different from what we originally imagined. This focus on progress also helps us build resilience. When we aim for perfection, we tie our self-worth to an outcome. If we don't achieve that idealized vision, we often feel like we have failed, not just in what we were trying to accomplish, but in who we are. However, when we focus on progress, we start to view ourselves as works in progress. This mindset shift fosters resilience because we understand that growth takes time and that setbacks are not permanent. With every challenge we face, we build the mental and emotional strength to keep going, learning from each experience and using it to fuel our next steps forward. Additionally, the pursuit of progress over perfection helps us find joy in the process. We become less focused on the end result and more focused on the steps we take along the way. This shift allows us to appreciate the small victories, the moments of insight, and the learning that happens in real time. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment to celebrate, we start celebrating the milestones, the progress, and the growth itself. This mindset helps us enjoy the journey, knowing that every step we take is part of the larger picture of our development. Ultimately, when we focus on progress instead of perfection, we give ourselves the freedom to grow at our own pace. We stop measuring our success by external standards or by an idealized version of perfection and instead begin to define success by the progress we make. The shift in perspective allows us to rebuild ourselves more authentically with patience and compassion for where we are in the process. Progress, not perfection, is what leads to lasting change because it encourages continuous growth, self-compassion, and the resilience to keep moving forward no matter what challenges we face. Embracing change with courage is one of the most powerful acts we can undertake in the process of rebuilding ourselves. Change is often viewed with hesitation or fear as it brings the unknown into our lives. The discomfort associated with stepping outside our comfort zones can make us cling to the familiar, even when we know deep down that growth lies on the other side of that uncertainty. Yet change is inevitable. The world around us constantly shifts, and so too must we. The ability to approach change with courage despite the fear or uncertainty is what allows us to adapt, grow, and ultimately rebuild our lives in more meaningful ways. The first step in embracing change is recognizing that fear is a natural part of the process. It's easy to view fear as something that should be avoided, but fear is not the enemy. In fact, fear is often an indicator that we are on the brink of something new. It signals that we are stretching beyond our current boundaries, and that's where the potential for transformation lies. Rather than allowing fear to paralyze us, we can choose to lean into it, acknowledging its presence without allowing it to control our actions. The more we face fear with openness, the less power it has over us. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Every time we take a step forward, even while feeling fear, we demonstrate our ability to navigate change with resilience. Courage also means allowing ourselves to be uncomfortable. Change inherently involves discomfort because it requires us to shift away from what is known to what is unfamiliar. It is in these moments of discomfort that growth occurs, yet we often resist change because we want to avoid this feeling. When we embrace discomfort as part of the process, we reframe it as a sign of progress rather than something to be feared. The discomfort of change is not a sign of failure. Rather, it is a reminder that we are expanding, learning, and adapting. Change often challenges us to reevaluate our beliefs, let go of old habits, and find new ways of thinking and being. It can be messy and it can be difficult, but that is the nature of transformation. Another key aspect of embracing change with courage is letting go of the need for control. We live in a world where control is highly valued, and it's easy to think that if we can control every aspect of our lives, we can avoid the uncertainties that come with change. However, life is inherently unpredictable. We cannot control every outcome, and trying to do so only adds unnecessary stress and anxiety. Embracing change requires us to surrender to the unknown and trust that we will find our way. This trust doesn't mean passivity, it means recognizing that we have the strength and resilience to handle whatever comes our way. Letting go of the need for control allows us to be more adaptable and open to the opportunities that change can bring. Courage also involves shifting our mindset from seeing change as a threat to seeing it as an opportunity. Often, when faced with change, we focus on the risks and what we stand to lose. We may worry about failure, rejection, or the unknown outcomes of our decisions. However, every change is also an opportunity for growth, learning, and new possibilities. By reframing change as an opportunity, we open ourselves up to new experiences and paths we may never have considered before. We stop viewing change as a disruption and start seeing it as a chance to evolve, discover new strengths, and create the life we truly want. With this mindset, we can approach change with curiosity and excitement rather than fear and dread. A crucial part of embracing change with courage is learning to trust ourselves. Change often forces us to make decisions without having all the answers, which can feel daunting. It's easy to question our ability to navigate unfamiliar situations, but the truth is, we are far more capable than we give ourselves credit for. The courage to embrace change is rooted in self-trust, the belief that we have the skills, resources, and resilience to handle whatever comes our way. Trusting ourselves doesn't mean we will always get everything right, but it means we have faith in our ability to learn, adapt, and grow from every experience. Additionally, embracing change with courage requires patience, self-compassion. Change rarely happens overnight, and the path to rebuilding ourselves is often slow and nonlinear. There will be setbacks, challenges, and moments of doubt along the way. It's important to be patient with ourselves during these times and recognize that the process of change is just that, a process. Instead of rushing to the end result, we can focus on the small steps and the progress we are making. Being compassionate with ourselves during times of difficulty ensures that we don't give up when things get tough, and that we continue to believe in our ability to move forward. Finally, embracing change with courage is about accepting that change will never stop. Once we rebuild ourselves and overcome one obstacle, new challenges and opportunities will inevitably arise. Life is a continuous cycle of change, and each phase offers its own set of growth opportunities. By learning to embrace change rather than resist it, we cultivate a mindset that is open, adaptable, and ready for whatever comes next. Change in all its forms becomes not something to fear, but something to welcome, a constant companion on the journey of becoming the person we are meant to be. As we step into 2025, rebuilding ourselves requires a deep commitment to growth, vulnerability, and change. By understanding the power of self-awareness, rewriting limiting stories, seeking connection, embracing progress over perfection, and approaching change with courage, we can transform our lives in meaningful ways. It is not about achieving perfection, but about making continuous progress, learning from every experience, and trusting ourselves along the way. Each step we take, no matter how small, brings us closer to the person we are meant to become. This year, let's choose to embrace the journey of rebuilding, knowing that every challenge is an opportunity to evolve and thrive.